After everything ended, the millionaire and his contract bride remained. The cabin does not greet them when the door opens. Cold air slips inside first, followed by the sound of boots on wood. Ethan pauses at the threshold, one hand still on the handle, as if the weight of the moment has not fully crossed with him yet. Clara steps in without looking back. The light inside is thin, pale, late afternoon, fading faster than expected. Outside, the sea remains steady, indifferent, pressing its rhythm against the rocks. They stand there for a moment, not speaking. This was not how arrivals were supposed to feel. Nothing dramatic happens. No argument. No decision made out loud. Just a door closing behind them, softly, and the quiet that follows, waiting to see what they will do with it. What's going to happen to them now? Ethan sets his bag down near the wall, careful not to let it thud. The sound would feel too loud in the cabin, like an announcement neither of them wants to make. Clara places her coat over the back of a chair. Not folded, not thrown, just placed there as if it belongs without needing permission. They unpack in silence. Not because they agreed to, but because nothing asked to be said yet. Ethan moves with precision, the kind shaped by years of control. Shoes align near the door. Watch removed and set face down on the small table. Phone placed beside it, screen dark. Clara opens the kitchen cabinets one by one, learning their order. Cups first, plates second. She does not rearrange anything. She adjusts herself instead. The kettle goes on. The sound of water heating fills the space between them, gentle and constant. When it clicks off, she pours without asking. One cup, then another. Ethan takes his without comment. They stand by the window, coffee warming their hands, looking out at the sea. The horizon is dull silver, stretched flat beneath a sky that cannot decide what it wants to be. No plans are discussed. No timelines named. The calendar on the wall still shows last month. A small square circled in pencil. Neither of them reaches to change it. Ethan notices this. He notices many things. He simply does not touch them. Later, as light fades further, Clara opens a window an inch, just enough for air to move. The cabin breathes with it. Dinner is simple. Soup heated slowly. Bread torn, not cut. They eat seated this time, facing the table, not each other. At one point, Ethan glances toward her, as if about to speak. Clara is watching the steam rise from her bowl, focused, present. He does not interrupt that. Night settles fully. The cabin grows smaller, warmer, holding them without pressure. When they finally move toward the bedroom, they do so separately, uncoordinated, careful not to assume. Ethan lies awake longer than he expects. Not restless, just alert. He listens to the wind outside, to the sea, to the faint sounds of the cabin adjusting around them. This place was meant to be temporary. Yet something about the stillness feels practiced, as if it has been waiting, as if staying might not be the hardest part. And the question remains, unanswered, pressing gently in the dark. When the holidays end, what do they do with what is left? Morning enters the cabin quietly, not with light, but with temperature. Ethan wakes before the sky changes color. He does not check the time. He already knows it is earlier than necessary. Sleep did not end so much as loosen its grip. He lies still for a moment, listening. The sea is there, steady, farther than it sounded last night. Wind moves along the walls of the cabin, testing seams, finding nothing loose. From the other room, Clara is already awake, not moving loudly, just present. Ethan sits up. His feet touch the floor at the same place as yesterday. The boards do not creak this time, or maybe he steps more carefully. In the kitchen, the kettle is on again. Clara stands near the counter, sleeves pushed back, hands resting flat as the water heats. She does not turn when Ethan enters. She knows where he is without looking. He reaches for a mug, stops. The mug he takes is not the one he used yesterday. It is the one behind it. Clara notices. Her eyes flick down for half a second, then return to the window. She does not comment. Coffee is poured. The kettle clicks off. Steam rises and fades. They stand side by side, angled toward the glass, not toward each other. Outside, the tide is lower than before. Dark rock shows through where water used to be. Ethan studies it longer than necessary, as if mapping a change he did not expect. They drink slowly. No conversation arrives to fill the space. The quiet remains intact, but its edges feel different, thinner, more alert. After coffee, Ethan reaches for his phone out of habit. The movement is automatic, familiar. Then it stops halfway. His hand hovers. Fingers curl slightly, then relax. He leaves the phone on the table, face down, untouched. Claire does not look at him. She opens a drawer instead. Inside, there is nothing unusual. Utensils, cloths, an envelope pushed farther back than it should be. She closes the drawer without taking anything. Breakfast is simple. Bread warmed on the stove. No plates at first. They eat standing, then realize too late that this was not intentional. When they finally sit, the timing does not match. Ethan finishes first. Claire does not. The difference is small, but it lingers. Later, Ethan straightens the small shelf near the window. Books are aligned by height, then by color, then return to their original order. The effort feels unnecessary even as he completes it. One book does not belong. Its spine is worn differently. The pages inside are marked, folded at the corners. He does not open it. He sets it aside, then places it back where it was. Clara watches from the sink. She dries a cup that is already dry, puts it away, takes it back out, leaves it on the counter instead. Neither explains. Midday passes without announcement. Ethan opens his laptop. The screen lights the cabin for a moment, casting sharp edges across the walls. He stares at it longer than the screen stays on. He closes it without typing a word. Outside, the wind shifts direction. The sound of the sea changes with it. Clara steps onto the porch without her coat. She stands there for a full minute, then comes back in, brushing nothing from her sleeve. "It is colder than it looks," she says. Ethan nods. He closes the window that was already shut. The afternoon stretches. They move around each other without collision, yet their paths cross more often than before. Once their hands nearly touch. Not enough to require an apology. Enough to notice. At dinner, Ethan reaches for an extra plate. Stops. Sets it back. Then takes it out again. The hesitation hangs longer than the action itself. Clara turns away, giving him the space to finish choosing. They eat in near silence. Not the silence from yesterday. This one shifts, settles, lifts, returns. Afterward, as the light fades, Clara speaks without turning. "If you needed to leave," she says, "you would already be gone." Ethan rinses his cup before answering. "And if you plan to stay," he replies, "you would have unpacked more." The sentence remains unfinished. Neither corrects it. The cabin holds the quiet carefully. If you have ever felt routine change shape before it breaks, you understand this moment. Stay with us. The smallest details are already asking their question. The envelope stays in the drawer. The phone stays face down. And somewhere between what feels familiar and what feels off, something begins to shift without anyone naming it. What happens when nothing is wrong, but nothing is fully aligned either? The morning arrives without announcing itself. Light moves across the cabin in slow increments, touching the edge of the table, the back of a chair, the corner of a book left open to the same page as yesterday. Nothing demands attention. Everything asks for it quietly. Clara writes in her notebook. Not much. A few lines. She pauses between sentences longer than she writes them. When she closes the cover, she does not mark the page. She sets the notebook down where it can still be seen. Ethan notices. He tells himself it does not matter. Breakfast unfolds with care that looks shared from a distance. They move around the kitchen with a rhythm that almost matches. Almost. Ethan reaches for the kettle at the same time Clara reaches for the cups. Their movements overlap, then correct themselves. He steps back. She steps forward. The adjustment is smooth enough to suggest understanding. It is not. They eat slowly. Too slowly, perhaps, as if time might reveal something if they give it enough space. When Ethan stands, he does not clear his plate right away. He leaves it where it is and walks toward the window. Outside, the tide has shifted again. Water has returned to places that were dry yesterday. Clara watches him from the table. "You are mapping it," she says. Ethan turns, surprised. "What?" The shoreline, she adds. You look at it like you're trying to remember where it was. He considers denying it. Instead, he nods once. I thought it would be predictable, he says. The sentence sounds complete. It is not. Clara nods, as if she understands. She does not. Later, Ethan finds the envelope. Not because he is looking for it. He opens the drawer for a clean cloth. The envelope is there, pushed back but not hidden. He freezes with his hand still inside, as if touching it might commit him to something. The paper inside feels heavier than it looks. Thicker. He does not open it. He sets it back exactly where it was. When he turns around, Clara is in the doorway. Her expression does not change. That was not meant to be urgent, she says. Ethan hears something else in her voice. A warning, perhaps, or an apology. He chooses the wrong one. Then why leave it there? He asks. The question lands between them and stays. Clara exhales, because removing it would make it something else. Ethan nods, as if that explains everything. It does not. They spend the afternoon apart without planning to. Ethan walks along the edge of the trees behind the cabin, far enough to feel alone, close enough to hear the sea. His steps fall into a steady rhythm. For a moment, it feels like control returning. Then he stops. He realizes he is counting. Not steps. Time. He turns back sooner than he intended. Inside, Clara is rearranging the bookshelf again. The same books. The same order. But one volume is now placed horizontally instead of vertically. Ethan notices immediately. You changed it, he says. Yes, Clara replies. Does it bother you? He considers the question. No, the answer is true. It still feels wrong. As evening settles, the cabin grows smaller. Sounds carry farther. A chair scraping. A cup set down too firmly. The kettle whistles sooner than expected. At dinner, Clara reaches for the extra plate first. Ethan watches her hand pause. She leaves it where it is. They eat. Midway through, Ethan speaks without looking up. If this is about timing, Clara interrupts gently. It is not. He nods, relieved too quickly. He assumes the wrong clarity. Later, as the light fades, Clara puts on her coat. Ethan looks up. You're going out? Just for a minute, she says. She does not take her phone. She does not take the notebook. The door closes softly behind her. Ethan stands alone in the kitchen, listening to the wind press against the walls. He tells himself he understands what is happening. He does not. If you think you know why she stepped outside, you might be wrong. Stay with us. Sometimes what looks like distance is only space, and sometimes it is something else entirely. Clara does not return when Ethan expects her to. Not late enough to worry. Not quickly enough to dismiss. The cabin holds his attention in the meantime. He rinses a cup that does not need it. Straightens the chair he never uses. Opens the window a fraction, then closes it again. The wind sounds the same either way. When the door finally opens, Clara steps inside, without shaking the cold from her coat. She does not look at him. She hangs the coat carefully, smoothing the sleeve once before letting go. The motion feels practiced, intentional. You are not gone long, Ethan says. I did not need to be, she replies. That is not the answer he expected. They stand there, facing different directions, sharing the same small room. The assumption Ethan made a moment ago dissolves quietly. Whatever he thought she needed space for, it was not distance. Clara moves toward the table. She touches the edge of the notebook she left earlier, then pushes it slightly out of the way. She does not open it. I thought you were avoiding something, Ethan says. Clara looks at him now. I was. His shoulders ease, as if confirmation is relief. Then she adds, just not what you think. The room feels smaller. Dinner happens later than usual. Not because they forget, because neither of them initiates it. When they finally do, the sequence is wrong. Bread before soup. No plates until halfway through. The routine, they had been building bends under its own weight. Midway through the meal, the lights flicker. Once. Twice. Then they go out. The cabin falls into shadow, the only light coming from the fading sky outside the windows. The sound of the sea grows louder without the hum of electricity to soften it. Ethan stands. I will check the breaker. You do not need to, Clara says. It comes back quickly. He pauses. How do you know? I have been here before, she answers. The statement lands heavier than intended. Before when? Ethan nods, filing the question away. The lights return a moment later, just as Clara predicted. The interruption passes. The unease does not. After dinner, Ethan opens the drawer again. This time, Clara does not stop him. The envelope is still there. So, it stays, he says, more observation than question. For now, Clara replies. He turns the envelope over once, then sets it back without opening it. The action feels deliberate, controlled. Clara watches closely. That is not what I expected, she says. Ethan looks up. What did you expect? For you to need to know, she answers. He considers that. I already know something. She waits for him to continue. He does not. Later, as the evening settles in, Ethan pulls out his phone. The screen lights his face briefly. He scrolls once, stops, turns it face down again. I assumed you were waiting for me to decide something, he says into the quiet. Clara shakes her head. I assumed you already had. That lands differently. They sit across from each other, the space between them measured and exact. No reaching, no retreating. Outside, rain begins without warning. Not heavy, just enough to be heard. It taps against the roof in an uneven rhythm. Clara speaks again, softer this time. When you stay somewhere long enough, people think it means you are choosing it. Ethan nods. And when you leave, they assume the opposite, she says. He almost asks her to clarify. Almost. Instead, he says, assumptions make things simpler than they are. Clara smiles faintly. That is why they fail. The rain continues. The cabin absorbs the sound. If you thought this moment would bring clarity, you might need to look again. Sometimes the violation is not what happens, but what is not, and what that absence quietly changes. Morning does not reset anything. It only reveals what stayed. Light enters the cabin in a narrower band than before, angled lower, catching dust in the air that was not visible yesterday. Ethan notices it because he is already awake. Not restless, just alert, as if sleep has decided not to interfere anymore. Clara is in the kitchen when he arrives. She is not making coffee. That is the first answer. The kettle sits untouched. 2 cups remain where they were last night. Nothing's wrong with them. Nothing has moved. Ethan reaches for the kettle anyway. Stops. Clara looks up. You do not have to. I know, he says. That answer lands differently now. He is not responding to her. He is responding to the habit. They sit at the table without speaking. The chairs scrape in the same places as before, but the sound feels sharper. More present. Clara slides the envelope across the table. Not toward him, just closer. That is not a decision, she says. I know, Ethan replies. She studies his face. Most people assume it is. He nods once. Most people assume a lot of things. This is the moment that answers something. Not everything, but enough. The envelope is not a demand, not a trap, not leverage. It is proof of timing. Ethan does not open it. He already understands the part he needs to. The papers inside exist whether he looks at them or not. Their weight is not in their content, but in what they represent. What happens if nothing changes, he asks. Clara does not answer immediately. She reaches for one of the cups instead, turns in her hands, sets it down again. Then it keeps moving, she says, just without adjustment. That is the new logic. Not stay or leave. Adjust or absorb. Ethan leans back. The chair creaks in protest. The sound echoes longer than expected. So, this was never about the contract, he says. Clara shakes her head. It was about what happens after it ends. He absorbs that quietly. Later, Ethan opens his phone again. There are messages waiting. He does not read them. He recognizes the names, the order, the urgency implied by their timing. Consequences continuing to unfold. He turns the screen down and sets it aside. This is reaching farther than the cabin, he says. Clara nods. It always was. That is the light shock, the realization that this quiet place was never separate, just delayed. The afternoon passes with more movement than before. Not rushed, just purposeful. Ethan prepares food out of habit, then realizes he is not hungry. The plate sits untouched longer than usual. When he does eat, he stops halfway through and leaves the rest without noticing. Clara watches, says nothing, Later, Ethan lifts the envelope again. This time, he opens it. Slowly. The papers inside feel heavier than they look, thick with signatures and dates that do not belong to this moment. Decisions made elsewhere. Timelines overlapping this one. Clara speaks before he asks. You were not meant to see it like that. But I'm seeing it, he replies. That is the second answer. The envelope is not about what he signed. It is about what he paused. Evening arrives without ceremony. The cabin feels smaller again, but not confined. Just honest. Ethan realizes something then. Routine has been holding him steady, but it has also been buffering him. You stayed longer than most would, Clara says quietly. Because it was easier, he replies. She looks at him. Is it still? He does not answer. If you thought this part would bring resolution, look again. Some answers do not close questions. They make them heavier. Stay with us. Because now that the logic has changed, the cost is about to become real, and nothing here will remain untouched. The consequences arrive quietly at first. Not as messages, not as voices, as absence. Morning breaks over the cabin with a sharper edge than before. The light is brighter, but does not soften anything. It exposes corners, surfaces, gaps where routine once absorbed friction. Ethan wakes to the sound of nothing moving. No kettle, no footsteps, no adjustment happening ahead of him. He sits up slowly, aware that this is the first morning where the cabin does not feel shared in the same way, even though Clara is still there. You find her outside, not walking, not looking at the sea, standing still just beyond the porch, coat on, hands in her pockets. She does not turn when he opens the door. You're up early, he says. I never went back to sleep, she replies. That is the first fracture. They return inside together, but not in step. Ethan reaches for the kettle out of reflex, fills it, sets it down. For the first time since arriving, Clara does not correct the motion. She does not assist. She does not prepare a cup alongside his. She sits, watches. Coffee tastes the same. The moment does not. Later, Ethan opens his phone again. This time, he reads. The messages have multiplied. Language has shifted from suggestion to requirement. The tone is no longer negotiable. Timelines have closed while he was here. They froze the account, he says eventually. Clara nods. She does not ask which one. Temporarily, he adds. And the board, she asks. They will not wait. They had already been preparing for this. After that sentence, the room changes in ways neither of them names. Ethan does not. Reach for his phone again. He leaves it on the table, face down, as if distance can be measured in inches. When he moves through the cabin, his steps are quieter, more deliberate, like someone learning the limits of a space that no longer belongs to him. Clara notices the small shifts first. The way he does not check the weather. The way he does not set reminders. The way he pauses before actions that used to be automatic. She adjusts without announcing it, sliding tasks into the empty spaces, carrying the weight without claiming it. That evening, dinner is late. Not forgotten, just delayed. The soup cools before either of them sits. When they finally do, they eat without matching pace. One finishes first. One keeps going. The candle burns lower than usual, wax spilling onto the table in a thin line that no one wipes away. Later, Ethan opens his laptop. The screen lights the room briefly, then goes dark. He closes it without typing a single word. He rubs his hands together once, then rests them flat on the table, palms down. Clara stands by the sink, drying a plate that is already dry. She sets it back in the cabinet, then realizes it does not belong there. She moves it again, then stops, leaving it slightly out of place. Neither comments. The night stretches longer than before. Sleep comes in pieces, broken and uneven. By morning, the routine no longer fits cleanly. Coffee spills where it never has. A chair scrapes too loudly. The quiet holds, but it strains. Something has shifted from choice to consequence, and both of them can feel it, even without words. Ethan prepares food and eats standing up, never sitting fully. The light shifts across the floor. The afternoon stretches. At some point, he realizes the package has not drawn his attention the way he expected it to. He picks it up, turns it over once, then sets it down again. The interruption was not what mattered. Later, Ethan notices something else. A habit he thought he had abandoned returns without effort. He finds himself reaching for it automatically, then stopping halfway through. The movement feels familiar enough to continue, unfamiliar enough to resist. He lets his hand fall. The cabin holds the moment without comment. In the evening, rain returns. Heavier this time. Clara closes the window before Ethan reaches. Their hands almost collide. She pulls back first. Staying has a cost, Clara says quietly. So does leaving, Ethan replies. They stand there, the space between them wider now, harder to cross. Nothing can return to how it was. The decisions made in quiet have reached beyond this cabin, beyond the coast, beyond the safety of routine. And for the first time since arriving, Ethan understands that healing is no longer about staying still. It is about what he is willing to lose. If this story is beginning to feel heavier, you are not wrong. Stay with us. This is the point where comfort stops protecting them, and every choice from here forward will leave a mark. Morning arrives without urgency. The rain from the night before has passed, leaving the cabin wrapped in a stillness that feels provisional, like something waiting to be disturbed. Light settles on the floor in long, pale shapes. Nothing demands attention. Nothing offers relief. Ethan wakes first. He does not move right away. The decision that has been forming since yesterday does not announce itself. It does not sharpen. It simply remains, present enough to be impossible to avoid. He sits up, listens. Clara is already awake. He knows this without checking. When he steps into the kitchen, she is at the table, hands around a mug she has not lifted. The steam has faded. She looks at the window, not at him. You do not have to decide today, she says. I know, Ethan replies. That is the problem. They move through the morning without coordination. Coffee is poured, but not shared. Bread is toasted, but one slice remains untouched. The routine still exists, but it no longer carries them. It waits for instruction. Ethan steps outside. The ground is damp. The air is sharp enough to wake him fully. He walks only as far as the edge of the clearing, then stops. The sea is there, unchanged, offering no indication of preference. He takes out his phone. There are fewer messages now, not because the situation has improved, but because the people on the other end are done asking. He could leave. If he does, the accounts stabilize. The board regains confidence. The structure he built resumes its shape. The cost would be immediate, measurable, contained. He could stay. If he does, the losses deepen. Timelines collapse. Control shifts to people who do not know this place, or her, or what has already been undone. Neither option feels clean. Inside, Clara stands at the counter, tracing the rim of the sink with her finger. The motion is small, repetitive. She stops when she hears the door. You look like someone waiting for permission, she says. I'm not, Ethan replies. She turns then, meets his eyes. I will not ask you to stay, she says. And I will not ask you to leave. He nods. That makes it harder, he says. I know. They sit across from each other. The table between them feels wider than it used to, not because of distance, but because of what now occupies it. Everything unspoken has weight. There's a version of this where we both lose less, Ethan says. There's also a version where we lose different things, Clara replies. Neither corrects the other. Time passes. Not marked. Not counted. Ethan reaches for the package again, then stops. He does not need it to make this choice. It no longer holds leverage. It only holds record. Clara stands. I will pack later, she says. Not because I am leaving today. Because I need to know I can. Ethan watches her move toward the bedroom. Notices how carefully she closes the door behind her. Not to shut him out. To define space. He sits alone. The cabin does not change. It does not react. It does not offer resolution. He opens his laptop. Not to work. To send one message. Short. Precise. Enough to signal direction, not outcome. When he closes it, his hands are steady. Clara returns an hour later, a bag by her side. Not full. Not empty. She does not ask what he sent. He does not volunteer. They stand near the door, not facing it. So she says. So he echoes. I will stay tonight, she says. After that, I do not know. Ethan nods. I will be here, he replies. For now, it is not reassurance. It is not retreat. It is the only honest option available. They do not touch. They do not separate. The choice has been made, even if the outcome has not. And if you are still here, watching this moment settle, you already understand something important. The most difficult decisions are rarely dramatic. They are quiet. They ask you to live with what remains. Main story. Part 8. The moment arrives without warning. Not announced. Not prepared for. It begins with a sound. The front door opening. Ethan looks up instinctively, expecting wind or Clara returning from the porch. Instead, a man stands in the doorway, rein still clinging to his coat, eyes already scanning the room as if it belongs to him. Mr. Hale, the man says. I'm sorry to arrive unannounced. Clara freezes where she stands. Ethan does not ask how he found them. He already knows. The man places a folder on the table. Not the package. Something thinner. Official. Final. The transfer was confirmed this morning, the man continues. The delay you requested is no longer possible. Ethan exhales once. So this is how it surfaces. Not in an argument. Not in a confession. But here. Now. With witnesses. Clara looks from the folder to Ethan. You said you handled it, she says. I did. Ethan replies. As far as I could. The man shifts his weight. Clears his throat. The board has exercised its option, he says. The shares tied to the agreement have been reassigned. Your name will remain, but the control will not. Clara understands before Ethan finishes nodding. The truth settles between them. This was not just about staying or leaving. This was a trade already made. You signed something, Clara says quietly. Ethan does not deny it. Yes. The word lands heavier than any explanation could. Clara steps closer to the table, opens the folder, reads only the first page, then closes it. This was done weeks ago, she says. Yes. Before I left. Yes. The silence that follows is different from all the others. It does not stretch. It collapses. You let me think there was still time, Clara says. I let myself think that, Ethan replies. The man steps back, sensing the moment does not belong to him anymore. I will wait outside, he says. The door closes again. Ethan reaches for the folder. Clara stops him. Do not, she says. He pulls his hand back. This is the action that cannot be undone. The signature exists. The consequence is active. No apology can reverse it. I did not do this to trap you, Ethan says. I know, Clara replies. And yet, she continues, I was part of the cost. He does not argue, because she is right. She picks up the package now, the one that has traveled through the cabin for days without a name. Opens it fully. The papers inside feel heavier than they look, thick with signatures and dates that do not belong to this moment. She hands them to him. You are not meant to see it like that, she says. But I am seeing it, he replies. And this is the second truth. Not the financial one, the personal one. He had already decided the shape of his future while asking her to live inside its uncertainty. Clara steps back. I cannot stay tonight, she says. Ethan nods. I understand. She moves toward the bedroom, stops at the doorway. I did not leave because I was unsure, she says. I left because I did not want to be managed. Ethan closes his eyes briefly. When he opens them, she's already gone. The door shuts softly. The man outside looks up. Clara walks past him without a word. Ethan remains inside the cabin alone. The folder still on the table. The package still open. The silence no longer shared. Nothing about this can be revised. The choice has been made. The truth has been spoken. And whatever comes next will be built from what remains, not what could have been saved. Morning comes without ceremony. Light enters the cabin the same way it always has, slipping through the narrow window above the sink, touching the edge of the table before reaching anything else. The room looks unchanged. The same chairs, the same counter, the same quiet. Only one mug this time. Ethan fills the kettle and waits. He does not rush it. He does not check his phone while the water heats. When the kettle clicks off, he pours slowly, watching the steam rise and fade. The folder is still on the table. He does not open it again. He stacks the papers neatly, aligns the corners, and places them back inside the envelope. Not hidden, not displayed, just placed where they belong now. Outside, the tide is lower than yesterday. The rocks along the shore are exposed in uneven lines, dark and wet. Ethan pulls on his coat and steps out, locking the door behind him. He walks the familiar path without counting steps. The air is cold enough to sharpen thought, but not harsh. He breathes evenly, stops once to adjust his glove, continues. There is no sense of waiting anymore. No one is expected to return this morning. That knowledge changes the rhythm, but does not break it. When he reaches the edge of the rocks, he stands still. The water moves as it always does. Unconcerned, reliable, Ethan remains there longer than usual. Then he turns back. Inside the cabin, he clears the table, wipes the surface clean, moves one chair closer to the window, the other slightly away. The space shifts subtly, intentionally. He prepares food and eats sitting down this time. Finishes it, washes the plate immediately instead of leaving it for later. The phone buzzes once. He picks it up, reads one message, deletes it, turns the phone off, and places it in the drawer instead of on the table. This is the new arrangement. Later, he opens a notebook that Clara once used. The pages are mostly blank. He does not flip through them. He writes on the first empty page. Not a plan, not a promise, just a record of the day, the time, the weather, the fact that he stayed. In the afternoon, he moves the package out of the main room, sets it on a shelf in the hallway. It is still there. It still exists, but it no longer interrupts his movement. The cabin adjusts. So does he. As evening approaches, Ethan lights the lamp near the window instead of the overhead light. The glow is softer. The room feels smaller, but more contained. He does not wonder where Clara is. He does not imagine explanations. What matters has already been said. What remains is structure. Before bed, he steps outside once more. The stars are faint, partially hidden by cloud cover. He stands on the porch, hands in his pockets, and listens to the water below. Nothing calls him back inside urgently. Nothing pushes him forward either. When he finally closes the door, he does so carefully. The cabin settles. This is not an ending. It is not a return. It is a recalibration. Ethan lies down and turns off the light. Tomorrow will arrive without asking what he deserves. And for the first time in a long while, that feels workable. If you stayed until this moment, stay a little longer. Some stories do not resolve loudly. They simply continue one steady day at a time.